Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Napoleon Total, and today we'll be doing another Enlisted video. To be exact, this is an Enlisted weapons video. Today we'll be doing a guide on the Panzerfaust. We're going to be covering the history of the weapon, and we're going to be doing in-game tips and tricks for the best, or one of the best handheld weapons, handheld anti-tank weapons in Enlisted. So let's get started. Before we start, we have to talk about the history of the Panzerfaust. Forerunner to the Panzerfaust was the Faustparon, literally translated as fist cartridge. The Fistparon was much smaller than the better-known Panzerfaust. Development of the weapon started in the summer of 1942 at the German company Hugo Schneider AG, or also known as HASAG, with the development of a small prototype called Gretchen, or Little Greta, by a team developed by Heinrich Ludwig in Leipzig. The basic concept was that of a recoilless gun. In the Faustprod and the Panzerfaust later on, a propellant charge was pushed into the warhead in front of the tube, which blasted and exited the rear of the tube balancing forces, and therefore was no recoil force for the operator. Development began on a much larger version of the Pastron. This resulted in the Panzerfaust 30, with a total weight of 5.1 kilograms and a total length of 104 centimeters. The launch tube was made up of low-grade steel, 44 meters in diameter, containing 95 grams, charge of black powder propellant. Along the side of the tube was simply folding rear sights and a trigger. The edge of the warhead was used at the front sight. The overhead warhead, 140 millimeters, 5.5 in diameter, was fitted to the front of the tube by a wooden tail string with metal fin stabilizers. The warhead weighed 2.9 kilograms and contained 0.8 with a mixture of 50% TNT and 50% hydrogen explosives. It had an armor penetration of 200 millimeters, and on most Panzerfausts, there are written warnings in red letters at the upper end of the tube saying "Achtung, Fauststrahl," or in English, "Beware, fire jet." This was to warn soldiers, obviously, of the black blast, which would occur when using a Panzerfaust. After firing, the tube was discarded, making the Panzerfaust the first disposable anti-tank weapon. The weapon, when correctly fired, which was done from the crook of the arm, can penetrate the armor of any armored fighting vehicle of the period. To use the Panzerfaust, the soldier had to remove the safety, tuck the tube under his arm, and aim with the aligned sights, and which were on the Panzerfaust. Unlike the American M1 60mm bazooka and the Germans' own 8.88mm Panzerschreck, this Panzerfaust did not have a usual trigger. It had a propeller-like lever near the projectile that ignited the propellant when squeezed. Because this weapon's short range, not only enemy tanks and infantry, but also pieces of exploding vehicles possessed danger to the operator. As such, the usage of a Panzerfaust required relatively great personal courage. The black blast from firing went back around 2 meters behind the operator, so anyone behind 2 meters would literally get burned. An interesting note is that the Soviet Red Army also captured Panzerfaust in 1944, but it was not until the beginning of 1945 when it became active and was actively used by the Soviet in their offensives of 1945. Mostly in street fighting against buildings and protective cover. In February 1945, one such captured Panzerfaust was recommended in a directive by Gregory Zhukov, commander of the 1st Belarusian Front, similarly to be used by the Polish People's Army. After the war, some 4,000 Panzerfausts were adapted by the Polish Army in 1949 and designated as PG-49s. That's all it for history. Now let's go on to the characteristics of the Panzerfaust. There are multiple variants of the Panzerfaust. However, as of right now, there are only 2 Panzerfausts in the game, the Panzerfaust 60 and the Panzerfaust 100. Let's first talk about the 60. This was the most common version. It was completed in early 1944, however, it did not reach final production until September of 1944, of which 400,000 were to be produced per month. It was a practical range of 60 meters, although it had a muzzle velocity only 45 meters per feet, and it will take 1.3 seconds for the warhead to reach the target of which is the tank. To achieve the higher velocity, the tube diameter was increased to 5 centimeters and 134 grams of propellant used, while it was being a total of 104 centimeters. It had an improved flip-up rear sight and a trigger mechanism. The weapon weighed up to 6.1 kilograms and could defeat or penetrate up to 200 millimeters of armor. And in terms of the stats for the game, Panzerfaust 60 is a caliber 88 millimeters, warhead explosion 18, armor penetration at 10 meters is 2 millimeters, at 7,000 meters it's 1 millimeter, like what the heck. Muzzle velocity is 45, rate of fire is 42, reload time is 3.3, vertical recoil of 50, horizontal recoil of 50, not that it really matters because it fires only once. It only has a one round magazine, and it has 6.8 in terms of weight, cartridge mass 3.3, and it cannot be fully automatic. Like, what did you expect? It's a Panzerfaust. Next we have the 100. This is the final version of produced in quantity, and was completed in September of 1944. It did not reach full production of November until November of 1944. It had a minimal optimal range of 100 meters. It had 990 grams of propellant launch of the warhead at 60 millimeters per feet from 6 centimeters diameter tube. The sights had holes for 30, 60, 80, and 150 meters, up to 260 feet and 490 feet. It had luminous paint in them to make them count up to the correct one to be used easier in the dark. The versions weighed 6 kilograms and can penetrate 220 millimeters of armor. For the stats in game, the Panzerfaust 100 has a caliber 88, warhead explosion of 18, so exactly the same as the Panzerfaust 60. Armor penetration at 10 meters is 2. At 7,000 meters, it's 1 millimeter. Muzzle velocity is 62. Rates of fire is 42. Reload time is 3.3, vertical recoil, and the rest are just the same. Honestly, the stats look exactly the same. I honestly don't know what the heck is going on, but if we are to go up from history, we could believe that the Panzerfaust 100 has just 20 more penetration, of which in total it has 200 millimeters of penetration and 220 millimeters of penetration if you use the Panzerfaust 100. That is my guess. I don't know if that's true, but let's go on to the recaps, which I will be talking about the penetration a lot more. In my idea, the Panzerfaust is a great anti-tank weapon. It's one of the best weapons, handheld anti-tank weapons in Enlisted. The Panzer Fist is therefore a great weapon. Like, how many times do I have to say it's a great weapon? It's a great anti-tank weapon, and in particular, where you hit the T-34, it can go up in flames. IS-1s usually take 1 or 2 more shots, but the Panzerfaust I find sometimes is very wonky. That means that sometimes you one-shot, you can destroy a T-34, sometimes you have to use all 3 rounds, or 4 rounds, or 5 rounds of a Panzerfaust, and then you still cannot destroy a T-34. Like, what the heck? It's very funky sometimes. Therefore, there are certain ways that you can hit the T-34. One way to hit the T-34 is aim at the rear turret. Well, there's only one turret, but aim at the rear of the turret, in which there's the back of the turret. There you will try to hit the ammunition, and once that explodes, well, the tank is gone. Another part is right next to the driver's hatch, right slightly under the driver's hatch. You have to be pretty careful because sometimes it does not detonate, but when it does, yeah, the tank just goes boom. You can also penetrate T-34s from front on. That is what makes the Panzerfaust so amazing. And yes, pretty good anti-tank weapon. There's nothing much I can say about it. It's truly amazing, and honestly, I would say it's a pretty good tank killer, with the notable exception of the dynamite, the TNT dynamite. So yeah, that's all it for the Panzerfaust. A great weapon, a great history, and honestly, it's a very terrifying weapon. So against T-34s, this thing could be a menace. Interesting tip I'll tell you guys is that when attacking Theater Force, make sure you attack it from side on, and that's not because the Panzerfaust cannot penetrate you front on. It's mainly because that you do not want the tank to be firing at you. Therefore, attack the enemy tank on the side. Also, you really want to make sure that you're a good distance away so you do not get yourself killed. But that said, yeah, very good anti-tank weapon. It's just sometimes it comes with experience of know where to shoot, but once you know where to shoot, the effects can be very, very terrifying. But that's all it for the Panzerfaust. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Now, before you leave, I would like to thank you very much for watching this video. I would be honored if you could like and subscribe to the channel. Remember, more videos are coming out, so it is a good idea to click on that notification button. Anyways, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.